She took the ball early, redirected it down the line, and suddenly the entire stadium went silent. That was the moment everyone realized Alexandra Eala wasn't just another promising name on the WTA Tour. She was a problem. And now, heading into Indian Wells for the very first time, the real question isn't whether she belongs. It's whether the tour is ready for what's coming next. Because when legends like Clijsters start praising you, and when a respected voice like Paul Annacone goes on record saying he loves your game, that's not casual hype, that's recognition. And today we're breaking down exactly why Alexandra Eala's rise feels different, why her breakthrough isn't a fluke, and why Indian Wells could be the moment she officially announces herself as a global star. Let's rewind for a second. A lot of young players burst onto the scene with one big tournament, one magical run, one Cinderella story. Then the tour adjusts, the winds slow down, reality hits. But what makes Eala's rise so fascinating is that it hasn't followed that predictable script. Yes, her Miami Open run was explosive, beating Madison Keys, taking down Jelena Ostapenko, and then the shocker that truly shook the tennis world, defeating Iga Swiatek. That wasn't just a win, that was a statement. Swiatek isn't someone you casually upset. She's relentless, disciplined, and mentally suffocating. Yet Eala didn't just survive that match. She handled it with composure and maturity that made people double-take. Paul Annacone recently said something that stuck with me. He talked about her smile lighting up a room. That might sound like fluff at first, but in tennis, demeanor matters, energy matters. When she beat Swiatek, she didn't celebrate like someone who just won the lottery. She celebrated with grace, with humility. That's rare for a 20-year-old pulling off one of the biggest wins of her life, and Annacone didn't stop there. He highlighted her hand-eye coordination, her ability to take the ball early, her knack for redirecting pace. Those are elite traits. That's not hype. That's technical analysis from someone who understands championship tennis. Now let's talk about ranking. World number 31. That number doesn't jump off the screen like top 5, but context matters. She's only 20. She's holding a 10-6 record so far in 2026, and those wins aren't filler victories. They include Donna Vekic and Jasmine Paolini. That's serious work. The Dubai win over Paolini was particularly important. Paolini isn't flashy, but she's consistent and tactically sharp. Eala beating her wasn't about power. It was about control, patience, choosing the right moments to attack. That shows growth. And this is where things get interesting. Indian Wells is not Miami. The conditions are different. The court plays slower. The margins are tighter. You can't just blast your way through opponents. You need construction. You need discipline. So the big question is, does her game translate? Here's why I think it does. Taking the ball early on slower courts is a weapon. It robs opponents of time. It forces them into rushed decisions. If Eala commits to that identity, she can disrupt even the heaviest hitters. And in women's tennis right now, disruption equals opportunity. But there's another layer to the story that people aren't talking about enough. The fan factor. Annacone mentioned something powerful. Players from smaller countries bring passionate support when they rise. The Philippines has embraced Eala in a way that feels electric. When she plays, social media lights up. Broadcast numbers spike. That kind of backing creates belief. And belief is dangerous on tour. We've seen this before. When a nation rallies behind a player, that player often finds another deer. There's pressure, yes, but there's also purpose. And make no mistake, the WTA loves marketable stars. A 20-year-old with charisma, humility, global appeal, and legitimate giant-killing credentials, that's gold. But I don't want to turn this into a marketing discussion, because beneath the spotlight there's real tennis happening. Let's revisit her biggest wins quickly. Madison Keys in Miami. That was power versus precision. Eala absorbed pace and redirected it. Jelena Ostapenko. That's chaos tennis. You survive that by staying calm. She did. Iga Swiatek. That's the gold standard. She didn't blink. Jessica Pegula ended her run in the semifinals. And that loss might have been just as important as the wins, because it showed her what the very top consistency looks like over 2 full sets at that stage. Then there's the US Open win over Clara Tauson in 2025, first Grand Slam main draw victory. That matters. Grand Slam nerves are different. The lights are brighter. The pressure is suffocating. She handled it. And don't forget the Madrid Open 2024 win over Lesia Tsurenko. That was her first top 50 victory. That was the seed. The moment she proved to herself she could punch above her weight. When you connect these dots, this isn't overnight success. This is accumulation, layer by layer, win by win. Now let's address something honestly. Is there hype? Of course. Anytime a young player beats Swiatek, hype explodes, but hype fades if results don't follow. The difference with Eala is she keeps stacking respectable performances. She's not just relying on one magical week. Technically, her game has clear strengths: early ball striking, court vision, calm under pressure. But she still needs more physical endurance for deep Masters runs. That's not criticism, that's development. At 20, that's normal. Indian Wells will test that stamina. And here's the curiosity gap I want you thinking about: what happens if she makes another semi-final? Suddenly we're not talking about potential anymore, we're talking about a top 20 player knocking on the door. But what if she loses early? Does the narrative shift? Does the pressure intensify? This is where mental resilience becomes the story. Clijsters praising her wasn't random either. Clijsters understands early success. She knows what it feels like to carry expectation. When former champions validate your trajectory, that builds credibility. Now I want to give you my honest take. I don't think Alexandra Eala is just a feel-good story. I think she's strategically building a foundation that could last. She's not overpowering everyone. She's outsmarting them. That's sustainable. And in modern tennis, adaptability wins. If she adds just a bit more serve consistency and continues improving her movement on slower hard courts, the ranking climb is real. World number 31 today. Top 25 by mid-season? Very possible. Top 20 by year's end? If the Indian Wells swing goes well, absolutely. But here's the bigger question I want to throw to you. Is Alexandra Eala already the most exciting young storyline on the WTA Tour right now? Or is there someone else you think has a higher ceiling? Drop that in the comments, because this conversation matters. We're witnessing a potential shift. The established stars aren't going anywhere, but every era has a moment when a new name forces the door open. Eala feels like she's pushing, and Annacone seeing it this early? That tells me insiders are paying attention. The tour moves fast. One tournament can change perception. Indian Wells could either amplify her momentum or expose the gaps she still needs to close. Either way, this isn't random. This isn't lucky. This is earned from Madrid to Miami to Dubai, and now the desert stage. Alexandra Eala is writing a story that feels authentic, and authenticity is powerful in sports. So keep your eyes on this run. Watch how she handles the first tight third set. Watch how she reacts if she faces a top 10 opponent again. Watch the body language, the composure, because sometimes the biggest growth doesn't show up in the scoreboard. It shows up in the response. And if she responds the way she has over the past 2 years, Indian Wells might not just be a debut. It might be the beginning of something bigger. RedDust Report will be tracking every twist of this rise, because this feels like the start of a new chapter in women's tennis.